Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Well, hello, faithful listeners, and welcome to the latest edition of the Serious Privacy podcast. Though this week we are without our Paul, who is enjoying the delights of Seoul, and will bring us back, I'm sure, a report on the Global Privacy Assembly over the next couple of weeks. So it is myself and Kay this week, and we're going to bring you basically a roundup of the news of what's been going on in the world of data protection and privacy, UK and beyond. So in that case, without further ado, my name is Ralph O'Brien.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. Okay, unexpected question. This was an interesting one. If you could have any, or the fact whether they make good pets or not, if you could have any animal as a pet, what animal would you want?
Oh, probably some sort of dinosaur. It'd be pretty heavy on the food bills, I imagine. My partner would no doubt say a puffin of some variety. Yeah, I'm going to stick with some sort of dinosaur, I think, yeah.
Interesting. Very Oh, I love that. That'd be fascinating. What kind of dinosaur? What would they eat? You'd almost want to have what do you call it?
Carnivore would be very good.
I saw a cute thing that someone said that they're a carbivore.
Yes, indeed.
A carbivore. You only eat as me. Okay, for me, it would be an animal discovered back when I was in junior high, and you had to, write something really cool about something unusual. And I looked up and I found, and of course, this was long before internet, found a kinkajou. A kinkajou is a tropical rainforest mammal. It's the only member of the genus Potos and is also known as the honey bear. Now, I did not know they were known as the honey bear, but they are basically a cross between a monkey and a bear.
Yes, I've heard of a honey bear. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, see, and I did not realize that honey bears were kinkajous.
A kinkajou sounds like Pokemon. Got to catch them all.
Something exist.
Yeah.
Now, if I didn't go kinkajou, I'd have to go red panda. I mean, right?
Yeah. There's a zoo very near where I live that's just had a red panda being born, actually. So actual baby.
Oh, nice. Okay. So other than red pandas and dinosaurs, what's been going on, Ralph? Tell me all about it.
I think probably the biggest thing from a European perspective would probably be the judgment of the CJEU. That's case T553/23, otherwise known as Latumbay versus the Committee. So what we're looking at here, this is the General Court that is actually dismissed for annulment of the EU Protection Privacy Framework. And this is kind of Schrems-free in a way, is the way I'd look at it. Everybody will probably know about Maximilian Schrems, who now runs Neub.eu. And of course, the idea of Schrems 1, which got rid of Safe Harbor, and Schrems 2, that got rid of Privacy Shield. And you'll remember that it was replaced by the Biden executive order that has the transfers for adequacy, and the EU agreed that makes the US adequate. The 7th of October 2022 adequacy agreement and the executive order that strengthened the privacy safeguards of the intelligence activities in the United States, supplemented by an Attorney General regulation that envisions the Data Protection Review Court. But Mr. Latumbay, who's a French national, a French citizen, and user of various American IT platforms, complains that obviously those IT platforms transfer the data to the United States and asked the General Court to annul the contested decision on EU-US adequacy when it came to the data protection framework. He submitted that the practice of the intelligence agency collecting bulk data in transit from the European Union without prior authorization of a court, that there's no independent administrative authority, and it's not sufficiently clear and precise. And if the court decided that they were going to annul the agreement, it would be as if it was never there. And therefore, it would have to go mulling for new. But I guess the positive news from professionals is a bit of a storm in a teacup, really. The Toonbay decision dismissed the action for annulment. They reckon that there are several safeguards and conditions to ensure the independence of the Data Protection Review Court's members, and they can be dismissed only from the Attorney General. The intelligence agencies cannot hinder their work, and the EU Commission is required to monitor the application of the EU-US framework and the legal framework in force in the United States in general. So the Commission could decide, if necessary, to suspend or appeal the adequacy decision, but the court rejected the pleas alleging that the DPRC is not independent, and there's nothing in Schrems 2 to suggest that the collection must be subject to prior authorization by an independent authority. So rather, it's clear from Schrems 2 that such collection is only subject to judicial review after the case of collection. So they can't consider the bulk collection by intelligence agencies falls short of the requirements from Schrems 2, and they reject bulk collection as well. So hell of a case for Toonbay, hell of a case to kind of kick off the week. But that's not all. The Google case as well, 425 million or 325 euros. So 425 million roughly in dollars and 325 million euros. This is the French regulator, the CNIL, 325 million euro fine for inserting advertising in Gmail users' emails and dropping tracking cookies without consent. The 2 breaches of French advertising and cookies. And this is a NOYB complaint, an NOYB complaint. Google's bundled ads with smart features, and those who agreed to switch them on had ads inserted into their Google Gbox in-mail, in promotion social tabs without people's consent. And this not only breached French postal laws with the Electronic Communication Code and the national implementation of the e-Privacy Directive, but also the GDPR as well. So they say that's 53 million Gmail users, 74 million accounts have been caught by this cookie consent breach. And of course, Max Schrems has said he's very happy CNIL's decision to take. CNIL in France have also handed the Chinese e-commerce giant Shein 150 million fine for failing to obtain user consent before placing ad cookie devices when they visit the Shein website. Looks like there's going to be appeals both ways. But that's not the only place where we're seeing enforcement action. I was actually pleased to see a very small action. They don't always have to be big. From Tanzania. Here you go. The PDPC, the Personal Data Protection Commission in Tanzania, delivered its first decision on children's privacy rights under the PDPA, ruling in favor of the complainant. And the complainant basically suggested that they had taken photos of their newborn child from social media and added it to marketing material for maternal and breastfeeding products. Obviously, the child is incapable of pursuing their data protection rights, so this is a parental consent issue. The photo was removed off social media and used to do marketing without parental consent. The parent in question had repeated requests to remove the photos. The company kept refusing. So it was that the PDPC in Tanzania held that the publicly available photos doesn't permit their commercial use, and it's no defense of the company to say that they're available on the internet. That's quite an interesting one because we've often seen divergence, I guess, between different data protection regimes. Certainly in America, there's a lot bigger view that if you can find it on the internet, you can use it. It is out in the public. It is publicly available information. Whereas over here in Europe, I think the submission would be to the contrary, that even if you can find it online, doesn't give you license to use it, you'd still need a lawful basis and to be transparent and tell the individual you'd taken it and have a legal basis. So Tanzania, I think, is following that judgment here, prohibiting the processing of a child's personal data without written consent of a parent or guardian. And the respondent confirms that the images were used for business purposes and they didn't seek consent because they felt they were publicly available. But the Tanzania said, no, you still need to have a lawful basis, you still need to have transparency, you've got to do this, and awarded the complainant 20 million in general damages and fined the respondent another 5 million as well, and ordered their immediate deletion of the photos from all platforms. So it was a nice little case study there, really. Nice little case study.
Oh, I totally agree. But for the record, it wouldn't really be acceptable in the U.S. either, maybe not specifically on data protection rights. But yeah, just because something's publicly available does not mean it's publicly allowed to be used.
So moving on, staying in Europe for the moment, I also want to draw everybody's attention to the European Commission, which has brought out a draft adequacy decision with Brazil, of all places. So something to look at there. This is actually quite a long document. I tried to preview it. It's about 53 pages, and it's a draft decision, obviously pursuant to the GDPR, that Brazil holds an adequate level of protection of personal data. Now, we already know that the European Commission has, granted adequacy to a number of countries and also international organizations. Big shout to the European Patent Office there. But Brazil is an interesting one. Of course, in South America, already have Argentina and Uruguay signed up as adequate countries. So lots of things to consider in here. They go through and consider the constitutional framework of Brazil. That's an interesting one. And then the data protection framework in Brazil that most people would know with the LGPD. I always get the I always say it wrong. The LGPD, the Law General of the Protection of the Lei General de Proteção de Dados. And actually, the PD itself has been strengthened and clarified through other legislation, particularly the law in 2019 that created the Brazilian Data Protection Authority, the ANPD, an independent authority 2022. So we've now got an independent authority, and with the Brazilian law, the LGPD. So territorial scope is in there, processing of personal data of natural people, definition of personal data, definition of processing, controllers and processors, obviously certain exemptions which are examined as part of the judgment, the principles, safeguards, lawful, fairness, consent criteria, legitimate interests, processing of special category data, purpose limitation, adequacy and minimization, storage limitation, data security, all of the things you would expect to see. Transfer provisions for onward transfer, even things like BCRs and such like. The LGPD is, I would say, a fair reflection of the GDPR, including things like having DPOs and PIAs. So I think, were we looking at this a few years ago, I think it would be fair to say that the ANPD, Brazilian authority, was struggling to get and gain resource. But the adequacy decision even looks at that. It looks at donations, subsidencies, credits, with an annual budget of 18 million in its local currency. Its board of directors, enforcement action it's taken or that it's possible to take as well, including all the different sanctions, redress for individuals, and what would happen if we sent data there, and vice versa. So a really comprehensive document about further use. It looks like this has been submitted in order to have discussion, but it's also taking into account the fact that the European Data Protection Board will have to also issue an opinion as well. So the European Data Board has not published an opinion yet. Actually, based on the European Data Protection Board's opinion, that adequacy decision with Brazil could well be ratified, and we could find ourselves with another country to add to the adequate list. So huge amounts to kind of consider there, another concerns of adequacy. What else is there? I could do a quick look around Europe. Some other cases from Belgium. Processing an ID card for bike rental verification wasn't necessary for the contract. There you go, one from Belgium. We've already talked about the Google. Italy, insurance provider, €80,000 for unlawfully disclosing and failing to notify the data breach. Spain, the AEPD fined the Spanish Chamber of Commerce €500,000 for transferring self-employed persons' tax identity numbers to private companies without a legal basis. And also in Spain, the Data Protection Authority fined a utilities company €200,000 for mistakenly including the personal data of a data subject in a third person's contract.
Okay, let's look my direction. So, AI Act, which is the e-privacy directive, included in European Commission's consultation on digital simplification. So the aspects of the EU AI Act will be part of the EC's omnibus digital simplification package. They're looking for legal predictability, so look for more information on that. IAPP's news editor, Joe Dubal, reports on the contents of the consultation, which closes on October 14th. Let's see. South Korea president recommends relaxing AI regulations for an overhaul of breach of trust regulations and proposed to deregulate AI safeguards, including efforts to protect individuals' data for AI training purposes. And we've seen this conflict arise in a lot of ways companies want to innovate using AI. So that'd be interesting. Paul may have something on that since he just came back from the Global Privacy Assembly that was held in Korea. So he might have some more of that. China updates their AI governance framework. They updated the version of its AI safety governance framework, which looks at the latest applications of AI. It delves further into the classifications of risk and how to counteract those and recommends governance measures. That's one to definitely pay attention. I'm not going to give details here. I guess I could. I do have time. We might go back to that one. So EU and South Korea issued a joint statement on adequacy. So it's marking entry into force of the PIPC's adequacy decision. So that is fantastic. The Australian eSafety Commissioner said online platforms do not have to verify the age of every user if it can infer ages reliably based on data that it already has. How do you do this? The guidance includes details on how to determine what platforms are covered under the law, how to monitor for underage accounts. And there is an interview out there of Commissioner Inman Grant about the online safety enforcement. Jedediah Bracey with the IAPP did that, so I'll try to make sure I link that in the show notes. And let's go ahead and dive into a little bit of more information there, shall we? Australia's social media minimum age guidelines are due to take effect on December 10th. That's my birthday, so I'll definitely keep that in mind with everything else, right? So how do they make sure that children under 16 don't hold accounts on their services? So they got a lot of industry engagement, community consultation, then came out with some recommendations. So they released a self-assessment guide, which will help services determine if they are age-restricted social media platform. And then it sets expectations for ongoing monitoring, transparency, and fairness in relation to how you detect and deactivate underage accounts. A quote from Ms. Grant said, "As we work towards implementing this world-first legislation, we remain deeply engaged with industry to ensure they have all of the information they need, as if industry might actually come up and have some more questions," right? And this is a media release on the esafety.gov.au website, what Australia put out themselves. So they have a principle-based guidance. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for the industry, given the wide variety of platforms and technology that are out there. So they're trying to take a layered approach across the journey for a combination of systems, technologies, people, policies, processes, communications for compliance. So key expectations, what are those for these platforms? Detecting and deactivating or removing existing underage accounts with care and clear communication, which I imagine comes with your account has been deactivated because it appears that you are a minor under the age of 16. preventing re-registration or circumvention by underage users whose accounts have been deactivated. So can you detect if these people come on and try to create a new account? Taking a layered approach to age assurance to minimize end-user friction. We all know how bad that can be. Try to verify someone's age, and then you can't do it. To minimize the risk of error rates, provide user choice, but also not to go into further privacy harm. So let's try not to do facial recognition, right? Or take off your shirt and let's do body morph recognition. None should happen. There should be accessible review mechanisms for users who believe they have been wrongly flagged as an underage user. Avoiding reliance on self-declaration alone, which is not sufficient to meet the legal requirement. And then continuously monitoring and improving the systems. So you can track your effectiveness, you can improve your measures over time, you can improve the transparency of the information about your age assurance practices in there. So what the eSafety requirement is not asking them to do is verify the age of all users. They are not required to age verify every user. Blanket age verification may be considered unreasonable. It's probably technologically infeasible and increasingly burdensome, especially if they already have existing data that they can infer the age reliably. They cannot use government ID as the sole method. They have to have reasonable alternatives to government ID or accredited digital ID services. eSafety itself is not prescribing specific technologies or measures. The guidance is on principles based. So platforms are not required to use specific technologies or specific vendors, including vendors or technologies that were assessed during the age assistant technology trial. They are not required to retain personal data from age checks. They don't expect them to keep that information. Record systems should focus on systems and processes for the overall effectiveness and efficiency and not user-level data. And they should not automatically transfer underage users to other services. Accounts should not be ported to supplementary services, which the social media may develop for, I'm a teenager, come join me. You cannot just shift them from one and move them to another based on what you determine the age verification to be. This is very much about blanket behavior, safety protocols across the board, and taking a practical approach to ensure platforms do not have minors on their system when they should, defined as those under 16 on their systems when they should not. Some companies are already using sophisticated age indicators like behavioral data and natural language processes and anonymous. That's fine. They should leverage those tools for this part for a privacy preserving mechanism. They really, really do want the industry to succeed, and they are counting on them to deliver services, obligations, in alignment with the law. So the legislation puts the onus on platforms, not parents, caretakers, or young people. And that is something that we've talked about on this podcast quite often, is the companies are the ones who have the knowledge. The parents, the caretakers, the children do not have the knowledge to know how to do this appropriately. They may have the knowledge on how to get around the controls, should that be an issue, but they do not have the knowledge to know what do companies have on them, what data they're collecting from other countries, other aspects and elements, and they're buying or they're renting or they're pulling from public databases and combining that data like a data broker into the sheer level of inferences and profiles that they might have. Average human doesn't understand that. So putting the onus on the companies is exactly where it should go. And this article ends up with saying that the minimum age legislation specifically prohibits platforms from compelling Australians to use government ID to prove their age online. They may offer it as part of a layered approach, but it should not be their only approach. They should have others in there. There you go on the Australia eSafety and the guidance that they put out. So that's really, really good there. The IAPP Digital Summit's going on this week. I really wish I could have been there. And if you did attend, I would love to have you on the podcast and let's talk about what was covered and what was talked about there. So the New York Attorney General opens public comment on social media algorithm age restriction laws. So, did we just talk about that for Australia? We did. So the New York Act is Stop Addictive Feeds Exploitation for Kids Act. What does that spell? Safety? Safe. Yes, Safe for Kids Act. There we go. The proposed regulations explain what companies must do to comply with the law and outline standards to determine age and obtain parental consent. Consultation will be up for 60 days. And then after that, the law will take effect 180 days after the rules are finalized. So 6 months. Once the rules are finalized, and I expect that we'll hear a lot more about the comments that are turned in on that. So the UK and the US AI institutes partner with leading AI developers to test security of the models. So the AI developers, Anthropic, didn't they get in trouble recently? And OpenAI, wait, they've been in trouble constantly, collaborated with the UK AI Security Institute and the US Center for AI Standards and Innovation by allowing researchers to engage in adversarial machine learning to identify vulnerabilities in the company's models and strengthen safeguards. That is good for them to do that, right? Ain't none of us going to complain on that. The purpose of the research was to help governments better understand AI risk and help developers enhance the security of their models. So if you want more information on that, give me a holler. We'll see what we got on that. So here we go. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman outlined OpenAI's approach to children's online safety. Has that been kind of a theme we're seeing with all the news that's cropping up? Sounds like it might be. Altman said minors' product interactions will be monitored by automated systems and only sent for human review over serious misuse or potential harm. How is it going to pick up serious misuse and potential harm? I mean, sometimes the indicators don't make it seem like it's all that serious, but the actual impact can be horribly serious. But, they can ask the AI which ones are the ones, that are more serious. There you go. They announced plans for deploying age prediction technology to police the underage use of OpenAI tools, which how in God's name do you stop a teenager from going to OpenAI and online and just typing stuff in? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So this story came out yesterday where Sam Altman is saying over the past 2 weeks, they've been expanding their conversations with experts and advocacy groups and policy makers who support and guide their efforts to make ChatGPT as helpful as possible. So with age prediction, they're saying that teens are growing up with AI. Yes, they are. It's bigger than being a digital native, right? Now they're an AI native. And it's on us to make sure ChatGPT meets them where they are. I love that sentence, but of course, there's always going to be a great spin put on it, right? They probably asked ChatGPT to write it for them, and wow, it really resonates with us, right? We're going to meet minors where they are, which is probably a level of AI sophistication far beyond me. The way ChatGPT responds to a 15-year-old should look different than the way it responds to an adult. And we've seen those stories, and we've talked about them here on Serious Privacy about how there has been bullying by ChatGPT, giving the user, which clear by the questions being put in or even the pictures being uploaded, that they're a minor. And it gives them bullying comments. So there has been some horrible things with this. So any step they can take to make sure that it interacts with children differently than adult would be great. But some of these things should also be carried over to adults, right? They say that they're building towards a long-term system to understand whether someone is over or under 18. Now, we do know in some countries it's 14 and in some it's 16. Across the board, it's typically under 18. You're being a little overprotective for countries that have it under 14 or under 16. But hey, let's make a line and draw it. When their ChatGPT experience should be tailored appropriately. When they identify a user as under 18, they will automatically be directed to a ChatGPT experience with age-appropriate policies, including blocking graphic sexual content, and in cases of acute distress, potentially involving law enforcement to ensure safety. Now, y'all may recall in years past there have been, and Facebook may still be doing it, or Meta, when there are posts about someone is going to commit suicide or language that's leading that direction, that they can report that to the nearest authorities. I don't know if they're still doing that. I know I felt good about them doing that at the time. I think they did intervene in some, but I also agree there's a lot of conflict about that as well. And they admit this isn't easy to get right, and even the most advanced systems will sometimes struggle to predict age. They say that if they're not confident about someone's age or they have incomplete information, they'll take the safer route and default to the underage and then give them a way to prove their age to unlock adult capabilities. There are parental controls They say they're the most reliable way for families to guide ChatGPT. We do understand the conflict there, as well as sometimes the child is in a situation that is not safe for them if they are present as who they truly are. That is a very, very difficult concept to develop the appropriate controls for. So they would link the parent's account with their teen's account, minimum age of 13, through an email invitation. Parents can help guide how ChatGPT responds to their teen. Well, red flags going up on that one, right? Based on teen-specific model behavioral rules, manage which features to disable, including memory and chat history. Let's hope the parents can understand that. Let's hope the teen can understand that. Receive notifications when the system detects their teen is in a moment of acute distress. They're saying if they can't reach a parent, they may involve law enforcement as a next step. They are looking for expert input to guide this feature to support trust between parents and teens. And sometimes there is absolutely totally a lack of trust between parents and teens. It doesn't even have to be members of a vulnerable community such as LGBTQ or disability. It could simply be that the teens have different views than their parents, or their parents are psychos and are abusing them for, there is no good reason, but no good reason. There's no excuse there. They just, there's abused kids. Okay, we're moving on. These controls will add features available for all users, including in-app reminders during long sessions to encourage breaks. So they are asking for people to provide input. It says our voices are shaping the way that this works for a matter for hundreds of millions of people. And that is true. And their technology is growing really, really fast. Pay attention to that as well. So the U.S. House Democrats urged a federal appellate court to uphold a ruling barring the White House from firing Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board Democrats without cause, saying to do so would threaten the board's independence. It goes against, what? So this was an amicus brief that they filed ahead of oral arguments. The oral arguments are scheduled for late October. I will definitely be putting that in my calendar to pay attention to. So late October is oral arguments with the appellate court over the PCLOB. And I have a feeling if the court comes down on either side, the other side is going to petition for review by the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm fairly confident. Let's look at this one. Florida Attorney General claims adult websites violated the age verification regulations. We absolutely have a theme going on here, right? So the Florida Attorney General Uthmeier issued 2 complaints to adult content websites after they allegedly did not implement any age verification mechanisms to ensure minors could not access explicit content. The companies are potentially subject to a $50,000 penalty per violation. Those can add up. So that's it for me, Ralph. Bring us home.
Looking forward at the calendar going forwards, you probably won't find me for the next couple of weeks. So I'll be taking some time off for some family matters, sadly. But as we go in October and December, you'll see a fair amount of interesting one. We've got some interesting guests coming up. Once we have Privacy Space, once we have Picasso Awards, and get to see Stephen Bollinger previewing his Privacy People film as well. That week in November is going to be a hell of a week. I will simply say it's goodbye from me and have a good week.
Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
That was Serious Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Serious Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on Nimity research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, Quick Actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.